Welcome to NTD News, I'm Paul Greaney. Here today's top stories. As world leaders condemn Turkey's attack on Syria, Turkey threatens to return millions of refugees to Syrian soil. Find out what that could mean for Europe. And an update on the Trump-Ukraine controversy. Two businessmen have been arrested and charged in the US. Both are associates of President Trump's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani. More on what they're being charged with. Tensions between the NBA and China are still high. Security escorting several fans out of a game for supporting pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong. That and what Senator Ted Cruz has to say about it. And in US gymnastics, Simone Biles making history, beating her own record. She's now the first woman ever to win 5 all-around titles. Find out what her next goal is. Several fans were escorted out of an NBA preseason games this week after voicing support for pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong. This after an ongoing rift between the NBA and the Chinese regime.
Free Hong Kong! Free Hong Kong!
Protesters held up signs in support of Hong Kong on Wednesday night when the Washington Wizards played against Guangzhou Long Lions. Patrick Hedger said the security officials asked him to leave the arena after he held up a sign and shouted, "Free Hong Kong." Other fans at the same game reported having their signs confiscated in the arena. A similar scene played out in Philadelphia on Tuesday during a game between Guangzhou and the 76ers. Sam Watts and his wife were removed by security for holding signs and chanting "Free Hong Kong." The problems between the NBA and China began after Houston Rockets general manager Daryl Morey posted a tweet last week that showed support for protesters in Hong Kong. Back in China, the Los Angeles Lakers played against the Brooklyn Nets on Thursday in Shanghai. With the packed stands giving the players a huge welcome on court and cheering enthusiastically throughout, there was no sign of angry protest at all. In the U.S., 8 members of Congress signed a letter to NBA Commissioner Adam Silver yesterday, condemning the NBA's response to the controversy. Senator Ted Cruz also expressed regret at the NBA for apologizing to the Chinese regime.
But I don't think the NBA, I don't think American companies should participate in Chinese censorship, because what their objective is not to have anyone dare to speak up criticism about their oppression.
Cruz said the NBA's reaction was not a profile in courage.
After consulting with Hong Kong law enforcement, Apple today removed an app that helped Hong Kong protesters track police movements.
Apple has removed a police tracking app from its store, saying it's been used by Hong Kong protesters to ambush police and victimize residents. HKmap.live only hit the App Store last week and was a crowdsourcing app that tracked police movements across the embattled city. Chinese state media, while not naming any specific apps, accused Apple of complicity in helping the protesters. The official People's Daily asked if Apple was thinking clearly. It said the tech giant had no sense of right and wrong and ignored the truth. In a statement, Apple said concerned customers in the city contacted the company and they immediately began investigating the app's use. They added, quote, "We have verified with the Hong Kong Cybersecurity and Technology Crime Bureau that the app has been used to target and ambush police, threaten public safety, and criminals have used it to victimize residents in areas where they know there is no law enforcement." On Twitter, an account believed to be owned by the developer of the app said it disagreed with the decision and said there was no evidence to support the claims against it.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said China's treatment of Muslims, including the Uyghurs in Western China, was an enormous human rights violation. He said Washington will continue to raise the issue.
I think this is not only an enormous human rights violation, but we don't think it's in the best interest of the world or of China to engage in this kind of behavior.
The U.S. government announced new visa restrictions this week on Chinese regime and Communist Party officials it believes responsible for the detention or abuse of Muslim minorities in Xinjiang province. Pompeo called on all countries to resist China's demands to repatriate ethnic Uyghurs, saying Beijing's campaign in the western Chinese region of Xinjiang was an attempt to erase its own citizens. UN experts and activists say at least 1 million Uyghurs and members of other largely Muslim minority groups have been detained in camps in the remote region. Beijing has denied any mistreatment of Uyghurs and said Xinjiang was its internal affair. When asked about a growing dispute over a tweet by an NBA team official supporting the protests in Hong Kong, Pompeo said American businesses were waking up to the risks of operating in China.
As European leaders condemn Turkey's attack on Syria, Turkey says it plans to send millions of refugees back to Syrian soil and wants Europe to pay for it. NTD's David Vivez has the details.
According to France's European Affairs Minister Amélie de Montchalin, Germany, Britain and France are planning to issue a strong condemnation of Turkey's attacks on Kurdish militia in Syria.
The Turkish ambassador was summoned today to the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs. France's Foreign Affairs Minister said that the attack undermines the coalition efforts against ISIS and the security of Europeans.
European Union President Jean-Claude Juncker warned Turkey that Europe would not provide aid for Syrian migrants generated in the conflict. According to geopolitics expert and vice president of IRIS think tank Didier Billion, contrary to President Donald Trump, who threatened to make economic sanctions against Turkey, European leaders have almost no choices. There is a migration agreement between the EU and Turkey on the management of migration flows between Syria and Turkey, dating from March 2016, and Erdogan has a real means of exerting pressure. Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan threatened back European countries to release Syrian migrants currently present in Turkey, for which it wants Europe to pay. There are between 3 and 4 million Syrian refugees in Turkey. You can imagine how much this scares European leaders. Erdogan's comments are very cynical, and it's a way to apply pressure. The defense minister repeated his stance on French media today that the Turkish operation against Kurdistan must stop at once.
And another Ukraine-related development. 2 associates of President Trump's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, have been arrested and charged with violating campaign finance laws. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more from Manhattan.
A New York U.S. attorney announced the indictment on Thursday. Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman, 2 associates of Rudy Giuliani, are accused of funneling foreign money to aid a pro-Trump election committee and U.S. politicians.
Parnas and Fruman were arrested around 6 p.m. last night at Dulles Airport as they were about to board an international flight with one-way tickets.
President Trump's lawyer has said that the 2 Europeans helped him investigate Democratic hopeful Joe Biden. Berman alleged that Parnas and Fruman donated $325,000 to a pro-Trump committee last year under the name of a corporation they set up, concealing their identities.
In the indictment, we indicated and alleged that this was an illegal straw donor scheme.
And according to the indictment, they also donated $20,000 to lobby a U.S. congressman to then advocate for the removal of the then U.S. ambassador to Ukraine. The pro-Trump committee allegedly contributed separately to the same congressman.
Campaign finance laws exist for a reason. The American people expect and deserve an election process that has not been corrupted by the influence of foreign interests.
2 other people were also charged in the 4-count indictment. So far, only 1 remains at large. Miguel Moreno, NTD News, New York.
President Trump denied knowing about the case or the men charged. He said today on his way to a rally in Minnesota that he also hasn't spoken to Giuliani about it.
They said, we have nothing to do with it. We have nothing to do with it.
One of the men, Lev Parnas, posted a picture on social media with President Trump with the White House tagged as the location. Another photo shows Trump, Parnas, and Igor Fruman together. Despite the photos, Trump said he didn't know the men.
Now, it's possible I have a picture with them because I have a picture with everybody. I have a picture with everybody here. But
when pressed more about the pictures, he directed reporters to ask Giuliani about them.
Another subpoena has been issued in the House's impeachment inquiry. This one targets Energy Secretary Rick Perry. House Democrats are calling for Perry to give them documents connected to the Ukraine investigation. They want to know whether Trump pressured Ukraine's president to investigate presidential candidate Joe Biden, a claim Ukraine's president denies. House Democrats say they want to know if Perry played a part in conveying or reinforcing the president's message. On Monday, Perry said he had asked Trump to call Ukraine's president several times about energy policies, but not about the Bidens. The head of ICE today took aim at a federal judge's ruling that makes it harder for the agency to detain illegal immigrants. NTD's Holly Kellum has more.
As much as I would like to, I cannot stand here today and promise you that dangerous criminal aliens are not being let out of jail to potentially harm others.
Albans took aim at a recent court ruling making it harder for ICE to pick up illegal aliens from state and local jails. 2 weeks ago, a U.S. district court ruled that ICE couldn't use databases alone to order a detainer at a state or local jail. A detainer is a request to hold an inmate for up to 48 hours past their release date so that ICE can take custody of them. The ruling affects detainers issued from the Central District of California to states that have not expressly authorized law enforcement to make arrests for deportation purposes. Albans says this threatens public safety.
To be clear, the principal beneficiaries of the recent court decision limiting ICE's ability to use its detainer authorities are criminal aliens who have been arrested for criminal offenses by state and local jurisdictions.
In his ruling, the judge said ICE's databases were not always accurate. Reporting by Holly Kellum, NTD News.
Dozens of climate protesters were led away from New York's Times Square by police today as they blocked traffic with a boat for more than 2 hours.
Protesters from the group Extinction Rebellion, some cuffed to the boat, chanted, "The oceans are rising and so are we," as police surrounded them and led them away individually to waiting buses. According to the New York City Police Department, 62 people were arrested during the protest.
It's not really a political statement. It's not, we're just here because there's a truth that needs to be clear and there are answers to what we can do about it. And if we don't do anything, what are we doing?
The activist group also extended their protest across the pond, descending on a London City airport. Protester and former Paralympian cyclist James Brown managed to get on the roof of a British Airways Embraer 190 jet, but was eventually removed. Another protester forced an Aer Lingus flight to Dublin to turn around on the runway as he stood up inside the packed plane to give a speech. The group said they were protesting plans to expand the airport, which aims to have 6.5 million passengers a year by 2022. Their actions caused some disruption, but ultimately failed to cancel flights. UK police have made hundreds of arrests so far this week as the protesters have sought to shut down London with 2 weeks of civil disobedience.
Up next, Hong Kongers celebrate Taiwan National Day in defiance of Beijing. Despite mass arrests and police brutality, Hong Kongers stood in solidarity with Taiwan. More on that after the break.
Viewers have described China Uncensored like The Daily Show, but about China.
At the beginning, I was super excited when I got 500 views, and now the show's grown to about 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. One episode reached 7.9 million people. I'm a little freaked out that that many people have seen my face. In 5 years, I see China Uncensored as the sole source of edutainment worldwide.
Today in Hong Kong, residents celebrated Taiwan's National Day in a show of support for what citizens call the real China. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg reports.
People gathered across the city in a show of solidarity with Taiwanese people.
One country, it is a Republic of China, not the evil People's Republic of China.
This year marks the 108th anniversary of the founding of the Republic of China, also known as Taiwan.
Give a very strong message to the evil communists. We will not stop struggling for freedom.
I just treasure the democracy in Hong Kong. I just want it. We have a freedom of right. We have a freedom to join the different assembly. This is the one thing I think the Hong Kongers want to treasure.
Hong Kongers are hoping to secure the right to hold genuine direct elections, free from the influence of Beijing.
And I found that Taiwan, every people they have a right to vote their president. And I also think that maybe Hong Kong in the future, everybody have a right to vote our own self-executive. Yes.
In the evening, citizens continue to rally in support of Taiwan.
We regard the Republic of China, Taiwan, as the real China rather than the PRC. And also, Taiwan is a democratic country, so we support Taiwan.
Hong Kongers have been diligent in speaking out to defend their rights, despite mass arrests and police brutality.
I think if we don't stand out today, we may not have any chance to march for democracy anymore. So we need to come out before the communist government really take over Hong Kong.
No, they won't stop us. Yeah, we will not fear of that.
Authorities are using every trick in their book to create a climate of fear and try to stop people from participating in protests. Citizens, however, are resilient and determined to keep on fighting for their freedom and democracy. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News, Hong Kong.
In her national speech today, Taiwan's president staunchly defended the island's sovereignty and denounced China's diplomatic offensives and military coercion.
President Tsai Ing-wen vowed in a National Day speech to defend the sovereignty of Taiwan, officially known as the Republic of China. She said her government would safeguard freedom and democracy as Beijing ramps up pressure on the self-ruled island. The Republic of China has stood tall on Taiwan for over 70 years, but if we were to accept one country, two systems, there would no longer be room for the Republic of China's existence. As president, standing up to protect national sovereignty is not a provocation. It is my fundamental responsibility. Resistance to China was a major theme in the speech. Tsai said mainland China challenged democratic values and global order through a combination of authoritarianism, nationalism, and economic might, posing a serious challenge to regional stability and peace. And not far from Taiwan, Hong Kong is on the verge of chaos due to the failure of one country, two systems. Nevertheless, China is still threatening to impose its one country, two systems model for Taiwan. Tsai expressed the overwhelming consensus of the island's 23 million people was their rejection of one country, two systems. This year marks the 108th National Day, also known as Double 10th Day in Taiwan. Official ceremonies, fireworks, and cultural presentations are scheduled throughout the country.
Up next, the U.S. Navy's Blue Angels are preparing for their performance this weekend. See what the lieutenant has to say about the flight's mission. That and more after the break.
Factual,
honest news.
Not biased, but completely straightforward.
You're not emotionally going up and down.
Bringing morality back to newspapers.
Be honest, old-fashioned journalism.
You're presenting the facts and letting the reader decide.
The Epoch Times is a fearlessly independent news media that publishes in 35 countries and 21 languages. Truth and tradition is our motto. Founded as an antidote to communist propaganda, today we're quickly becoming a household name across America. Our subscribers thank us for our relentless and unbiased coverage.
I've been part of the Epoch Times for nearly a decade.
because I've seen there's no other major media outlet in the world as devoted to real journalism. The Epoch Times has never had any corporate or political agenda. We only serve our readers, and we'll stay that way, no matter what.
We connected the dots around Spygate, the Obama administration's elaborate efforts against Trump's 2016 campaign. We often break news months ahead of other media on topics such as Chinese espionage, cyber warfare, subversion in America, and more. But our authoritative reporting didn't only just begin. We are tried and true.
Our paper was born out of the need to respond to a human rights catastrophe in China. It was enabled by the Communist Party's vicious and dishonest propaganda. We soon learned that Western media were picking up and amplifying the lies. The Epoch Times' truthful reporting exposed the Communist Party's lies for the Chinese people. But it also helped protect our Western audience. It disabused for them the lies in this propaganda. Our reporting has also helped uncover how communist ideas are taking root in our own country. The Epoch Times started as a small and unknown publication in one of the toughest media markets in the world. We have built it through hard work and trial and error.
We were founded in the year 2000 in Atlanta, Georgia, by Chinese Americans who had fled communist China. Our independent reporting came at a price. Our staff members in China were jailed and tortured for their reporting, some for as long as 10 years. Because our founders believed in truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance, the principles of the spiritual practice fallen gone. They felt such sacrifices were worth it to ensure for the world an independent, honest media, one that would report on the most pressing issues of our time. As many major media are losing people's trust and declining further every day, the fastest growing newspaper in America delivers truth and tradition. Look us up today.
U.S. gymnast Simone Biles became the first woman to win 5 world all-round titles in gymnastics today. The beloved gymnast took home the all-round title at the Gymnastics World Championships in Stuttgart, Germany. This marks the second time she has broken a world records medal. This marks the second time she has broken a medals record this week. Biles became the most decorated female gymnast in history on Tuesday when she debuted 2 new difficult skills and won her 21st World Championship medal. She plans to compete on the US team at the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. It's Fleet Week in the San Francisco Bay Area, which means the US Navy, Marine Corps and Coast Guard are recognized for their services. To celebrate, there'll be a performance by the Navy's Blue Angels.
These classic blue and yellow aircrafts are back for their annual aerobatic performance for Fleet Week this weekend. They are practicing at Oakland Airport before their first performance tomorrow. Lieutenant James Cox is the left wingman in the diamond formation for most of their maneuvers. This is his first year flying with the team.
Growing up, I went to all the Blue Angel shows with my parents, and I had Blue Angel models hanging from my ceiling, and it's something that I had always had my eye on.
Their mission is to inspire a culture of excellence and service to the country through flight demonstration and community outreach. The latter, in his opinion, is the best job.
We get to go out to schools and hospitals and different community organizations all over the cities that we visit and get to talk about our mission as Blue Angels and get to inspire that culture of excellence to the youth and to all of America, which is extremely humbling and something that I am very happy to be a part of.
Cox says invitations to apply are sent out every year, and those who have been flying for at least 8 years can apply to fly with the Blue Angels. There's also no limit to how many times one can apply.
Wearing this blue uniform, there's no difference between us and the 800,000 Navy and Marine Corps service members that are out there currently doing our mission. We just have the ability right now to represent them and to try to instill that culture of excellence into the next generation of hopefully military servicemen and women.
The Blue Angels have been around since 1946 and have been flying in the Bay Area for Fleet Week since 1981. The team of 6 F-18 jets will be switching to a more advanced aircraft, the Super Hornet, in 2021.
The Blue Angels will perform tomorrow, Saturday, and Sunday during the Columbus Day Parade in San Francisco. Eileen Ng, NTD News, Oakland, California.
Boeing and Porsche are teaming up to make airborne cars a reality. The aircraft giant and the German sports car maker announced their plans today. They say they want to explore the urban air mobility market with a fully electric vehicle capable of vertical takeoff and landing. The announcement didn't include any details about a target, date, or price range. Up next, the winner of the Nobel Literature Prize, what his publisher has to say about his work. The Swedish Academy calling him one of the most modern influential writers. That and more after the break.
Our investigative reporters at the Epoch Times have spent 18 months uncovering the biggest political scandal in modern history. We connected the dots around Spygate, the actions by Obama-era officials against Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. Join me on Declassified as we bring you up-to-date developments on this unfolding scandal.
When you look at TV networks in America, a soundbite and fight-it-out culture prevails on news and commentary programs. As a Canadian, I'm fascinated with America, and I wanted to offer American thought leaders an opportunity to share their thoughts in a deep dive format, where we can explore their ideas together. And so American Thought Leaders was born. The world's most brilliant thinkers believed that open discourse was the key to greatness. However, all around the world, we see that discourse is being stifled and political agendas have subverted media. The Epoch Times launched its Global Thought Leaders program to bring back this great tradition of free thought. As the host of American Thought Leaders, every week I interview some of the most intriguing minds on the most pressing issues of our time. Be sure to check out our new episodes every week.
The publisher of the Nobel Literature Prize winner says reading his work is like exploring the world.
Following the Swedish Academy's announcement that Austrian writer Peter Handke won the 2019 Nobel Prize for Literature earlier on Thursday, Handke's publisher expressing what he finds exceptional about his writing.
So with Peter Handke we have an author with whom one can explore the world and see the world in a new light.
Handke, 76, was recognized for a body of work which includes novels, essays, notebooks, and drama, and that the Academy says, quote, with linguistic ingenuity has explored the periphery and the specificity of human experience, end quote.
I think he is an author that can be read and should be read globally. And his approach to writing, to seeing the world, to explore the world.
The Academy said Handke had established himself as one of the most influential writers in Europe after World War II. Handke also co-wrote the script of the critically acclaimed 1987 film Wings of Desire.
And that's all for today's NTD News. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Paul Graney.